So, be honest. How would you react if you paid good money for an airplane ticket, but then once you got on board the plane, this is what you saw?
Oh my God, bro. Oh, hell no.
So I recently flew JetBlue from New York JFK back to Chicago on one of its Embraer 190s. These are among the oldest planes in JetBlue's fleet and are actually the only planes that will never receive any cabin retrofits because they're supposed to be retired by 2025. Now, I've flown the JetBlue E190 before, back in 2018 from Chicago to JFK. So even before this flight, I already had a basic idea of what to expect on board, more specifically in terms of hard product. But soon after stepping on board, I can say right now that after taking around 250 flights in my lifetime, this was the worst airplane I have ever flown in. With that being said, I invite you to join me on this rather eventful journey back home. I arrived into JFK on board one of JetBlue's A320s from Raleigh-Durham. Having 3 hours to spend here, myself and some friends, who I'll mention at the end, decided to pay a visit to the famous TWA Hotel that's directly connected to JFK Terminal 5 where JetBlue operates from. The hotel retains the original head house of the TWA Flight Center. The Flight Center was TWA's terminal at JFK from 1962 until the airline's demise in 2001. Two of these iconic tubular hallways that now connect Terminal 5 to the hotel originally funneled passengers from the head house to the concourses. In its heyday, the TWA Flight Center head house was home to the ticket counters, baggage claims, and waiting areas, in addition to lounges and cafes. Today, it serves as a common area for the TWA Hotel with a small museum, cafe, and of course this iconic flipboard display that was so common across airports back in the day. The hotel has a gift shop as well where you can buy lots of cool, albeit overpriced, souvenirs. One of my favorite parts inside had to be this detailed 1/400 scale replica of the Flight Center. It's really quite amazing how detailed this was, reflecting so many aspects of air travel back then that are totally obsolete now. The display features various TWA 707, 727, DC-9, 747-100, and L1011 models among others, even an Air France Concorde. Perhaps the most iconic part of the TWA Hotel is this Lockheed Constellation Starliner that now sits outside. I'll leave a link below where you can read about this aircraft story because the process of getting it to the hotel was really quite amazing. After some great time at the TWA Hotel, we took some trips on the JFK Air train before finally making it back to Terminal 5. We were cutting it really close as there were only 40 minutes until boarding and the TSA lines looked horrendous. Thankfully, TSA PreCheck was a lot better and we were through within 15 minutes. JFK Terminal 5 is modern, expansive, and really easy to navigate. Aside from JetBlue, the terminal also serves flights for Cape Air. Terminal 5 previously served Aer Lingus flights until April 2023, when Aer Lingus moved across to Terminal 7. JetBlue operates the JFK Chicago route twice per day, varying between Embraer 190s and Airbus A320s. JetBlue currently operates a fleet of 42 Embraer 190s, all of which will be retired by mid-2025 in favor of more Airbus A220-300s. JetBlue's 190 seats 100 passengers with only economy class seats laid out in a 2-2 configuration throughout the aircraft. Rows 1, 12, 13, and 14 feature extra legroom even more space seats that are available for an extra upcharge. As I stepped onto the aircraft, I wasn't expecting anything crazy, but boy was I wrong. The E190s have JetBlue's first generation of seats that don't have adjustable headrests but are still nicely padded. So right from the get-go, I noticed that my seat cushion was, for lack of a better term, filthy. Somehow there was permanent marker, and I don't even know what that other stuff was, but wow, this was bad. The seat back on the E190 has a small screen for DirecTV entertainment, and its controls are found in the armrest. Below is a tray table and then a large seat pocket with a smaller one for the safety card and refreshments menu. As always on JetBlue, the legroom is fantastic in standard core economy with 32 inches of pitch. Now, my seat pocket looks noticeably worn, but the one at my neighboring seat was even worse, quite literally hanging by a thread. Above the seat are reading lights, air vents, and a call button, which worked fine. The longer I sat in this seat, the more I realized that I was essentially inside a flying dumpster. Okay, that was a bit too harsh, but seriously, this plane was disgusting. Everything quite literally seemed like it hadn't been cleaned in weeks, let alone days. The seat pockets were ripped, falling apart with various stains on them, and I couldn't even tell you what in the world happened with the overhead panels. I opened up my tray table in hopes of it being a little cleaner, but of course this had random stains also. At this point, I was more than thankful to have had sanitizing wipes with me. The E-Jets are rather infamous for having misaligned windows, and row 3 on the JetBlue E190 is no exception. I had to lean forward a decent bit just to look outside, which wasn't very pleasant. Once in flight, the next order of business was to get some business done, so I made a visit to the forward lavatory. It was pretty standard, a little dirty, but thankfully not as bad as my seat. Drink service started shortly after reaching cruise altitude, and I went with a Pepsi, which ended up being the perfect combination with the napkin. Snacks were passed out separately. There were 4 choices, and I went with the plantain chips, which were pretty decent. Seatback entertainment is offered on all JetBlue aircraft. However, the 190s and oldest A320s feature the good old classic hardware that only offers live TV. In today's day and age, it's a rather outdated system and the resolution isn't great, but it's better than nothing. The system even shows its age in less obvious ways, and this is a perfect example, so let's pause right here. So on this hometown airline advertisement, you might not notice anything off. But in fact, JetBlue doesn't fly to Newburgh anymore. They cut service back in 2020. And even before that, JetBlue began service to Albany in 2015, but Albany is nowhere to be seen. So that just makes me wonder, how old is this? Also, regarding the credit card swipe right here, that's been inactive for many years. JetBlue must have charged you at some point to use the entertainment, but I assume that was a long time ago. The in-flight map is also rather basic, but gets the job done. It runs in loops, so it's by no means interactive. I will also add that I really appreciate the ability to tilt the screens up and down. I imagine that would be helpful to some people. As the flight progressed, one issue that I noticed with my TV screen was that the brightness wouldn't go all the way up. It would just stop 4 levels below the maximum brightness, which was weird. JetBlue's entire fleet features onboard Wi-Fi, and it was rather easy to get my iPad connected. I love how JetBlue adds the name of the aircraft to the homepage, but it's also mildly concerning how our destination isn't listed. The Wi-Fi site also has an in-flight map, which for some reason shows that our plane is pointing northeast. Anyway, the Wi-Fi itself worked fine, and I was able to look up our flight on Flight Radar 24. Just in front of us was a Turkish cargo 777 freighter, also flying from JFK to O'Hare. Otherwise, there wasn't much to report on the flight. I just kinda sat back and watched the sunset as it soon became time for descent. Flying westbound always ends up taking longer than flying the other way, but I don't know, something about this flight just seemed to drag, but anyway, I was pretty eager to get off this plane. Our approach brought us over Lake Michigan and then later the northwest suburbs and past O'Hare on downwind. We then made a sharp 180 before coming in to absolutely smash it on the infamous runway 9 left. By far the hardest landing I have ever had. I think that landing just about sums up the entire experience. Out of the nearly 250 flights that I've taken in my 20 years of life, this was without a doubt by far the worst flight I've ever taken in terms of onboard experience. And I know people don't like it when I complain, but guess what? I paid good money for this ticket and so did other people. So yes, I have every right to complain. Now let me start off by saying that the onboard service and the on-time performance were fine. Not only that, but I wasn't even bothered by the outdated cabin because I already knew what to expect beforehand. What I didn't expect and what really ruined the experience for me was the horrific state of the seats. The filth and just overall deplorable condition was really quite shameful and unlike anything I have ever seen across the many airlines that I've flown. For an airline that's so highly regarded like JetBlue, I would have never expected this from them. So yes, I had a below average experience with JetBlue, but that doesn't mean I'll avoid them. Absolutely not. I will continue to fly JetBlue if the price is right, and I would still recommend them as an airline. Would I recommend their Embraer 190? Well, if you can avoid it, I would say avoid it. But then again, these planes will only be around for another year and a half, so take that how you will. I'd still fly it again though, no questions asked. O'Hare's runway 9 left, 27 right might as well be in Wisconsin because of how far it is from the terminals. Despite us landing 15 minutes early, that was negated by the nearly 20-minute taxi to our gate, where we pulled in slightly behind schedule. JetBlue uses gate G2 at O'Hare, and the funny thing about this gate is that it's so long that it quite literally takes an extra 1 to 2 minutes just to walk through it. But that's it, here we are back in Chicago after a crazy series of flights that you've seen over the past few weeks. Special thanks to my friend That Aviation Geek for joining me on this trip, and also my other fellow Illini Dulles Aviation 123 for joining us on this last segment of the trip. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and thank you so much for sticking around till the end. If you're interested in supporting this channel, check out my Patreon that's linked in the description below. But that's it for now, so take care everyone, and I will see you next time.